And then that site does 100,000 page views in 6 months. And I was like, okay, I've done it twice. Let me see if I can do it a third time. So I do it with a third site, and the third site does 400,000 page views in the first 60 days. And I was like, what? So I was like, okay, 3 times I'm onto something here.
Hey guys, it's Mike from 8 Time Online, and I'm joined today by Scrivs, who definitely knows a thing or two about building an online business. So yes, I'm joined by Paul Scrivens, Scrivs as he is also known, from Dare to Conquer, and he is a guy who certainly knows what he's talking about when he's talking about blogging and making money online. He's created loads of different websites and loads of different niches, and well, he actually even says himself there are basically 7 niches which are easier to be profitable online. And he's pretty much covered all of them at some stage himself. So he's a great person who actually understands the differences between different niches, and particularly just how to monetize websites and monetize blogs. So he is joining the Start a Blog to Make Money series, which is kind of these 4 episodes in October. And there are going to be 2 episodes with Scrivs because he talks about so many different things. And again, I've kind of split them into 2 because I think they fit quite nicely having 2 episodes. This one today is mainly about kind of his story, his journey to how he started making all this money online and now what he's actually trying to do. But also what he has found that particularly new bloggers, the most common mistake that they make. We're just going to dive straight into Scrivs' story. So without any further ado, let's get into the episode.
Interviews. And I just always felt like, okay, maybe this isn't for me. So I just looked for another job because I needed money. And I got a job as a what we call headhunter. So basically people who help other people find jobs.
Cool.
She tells me, my boss, okay, you're going to sit on the phone and call companies. I hate calling people. I don't want to talk on the phone. I don't like this stuff. And so I tell her, hey, I can build a website for her, which I was just full of shit. And she's like, oh, really? Okay, we'll build a website. So I'm like, great. So then I have to start learning how to build websites like within a day. And so I'm building this website and, I'm looking up how to design websites and all that kind of stuff. And I come across a couple blogs, web design blogs. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like random people are talking about how to build websites and stuff like that. Let me start a blog and I'll talk about what I'm learning as well. So I started the blog and I didn't know the rules of blogging. I didn't know if there's etiquette. So everybody in the blogging world back then, they're very polite to each other. And they just, instead of like giving critiques about what they think about the design, it was just always, oh, this design's really nice. Me being me, I would see a design and be like, oh, this design's ass. It's terrible. It's terrible because this, and I would write like that. And people would come and they'd be like, oh my God, I love your writing. You're so unique. You're like your totally different voice. And that blog blew up. But unfortunately, that blog was on the people I work for. It was on their site. And I was like, well, this doesn't work out. I got to move this thing. So I actually moved the blog off to my own site. So that was my first blog. And then my boss found out that I moved the blog. She didn't even know the blog existed. I moved the blog. She found out about it. So she said, I either got to move the blog back or she'll fire me. And, I'm getting like thousands of people to my site. And, for somebody who didn't know the blogging even existed a couple months before, this is just like unreal to me. So I'm like, oh, well, you're going to have to fire me because I'm not letting this go. Like, this is just an unbelievable opportunity. So she fired me and then I started a blog. So I had the blog, then I had a blog network, and, it was all fun for a couple of years, and until I just got burned out and I stopped. I sold the company and I kind of became a vagabond, just wandering around the world, not knowing what the hell I was going to do. And then I met my wife one day, and after dating me for a couple months, she says, look, you got to get a job. I don't know how you're making money here, but you got to get a job.
So were you making money?
I was, but I was like doing like little hustle things. Like somebody would say, "Oh, I need to design a logo," so I would design a logo. Somebody would design a website or write a blog post, like like little shit like that. She's like, "No, I need to know you can make consistent money," and I'm like, "Shit, all right." So I got a job with a web hosting company in LA, and I was their community manager. And since a lot of the blog community, design community knew me, I was able to bring in a lot of clients for them and everything. But that was pretty much like my first real job where I was sitting there and I would always have the ideas about what we should do. And I was like, oh, let's do this. And I'd always get the response, oh, that's great, but that's not how things work here. And when you hear that enough times, it's like, well, what the hell am I doing? Like, why am I putting my energy, my talents, trying to improve things when there's always some red tape, there's always some structure that other people, they just don't want to, help you do things. And that bugged me because, for the prior 8 to 10 years, I was doing things on my own. Like, even though I was screwing up a lot and failing, at least I was making my own decisions and doing what I wanted to do. And so that always kind of sat in me. So it wasn't that I hated the job. I loved the people. I loved the work that I was doing, but I hated the ability of not being able to try things or do things that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I always kept on thinking, okay, I'm going to start another company. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I would have an idea and I would spend a couple months working on an idea. It would fail miserably. I would start another idea, fail miserably. And it just wasn't connecting with me. Like, why are these things failing? And then by the time I got my third job and the company got bought out, they were like, you can keep this job, but you have to move to Virginia. And I was like, no, that sounds sucky. I don't want to move to Virginia because I was in LA at the time and I loved LA. So I'm like, no. And they're like, okay, well, then you don't have a job anymore. And I'm like, all right. And that's when I was like, okay, fuck this. I can't work for any more people. This is getting out of hand. Like I'm just miserable, not controlling my own stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start a business again. And I created a course on web design and I posted it on a site called Product Tongue, and it was just perfect timing. And I made 20,000 like in a weekend. And I was like, oh, okay.
Wow.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
What was it? What was it about? Like, what you were actually doing?
It was literally because a lot of entrepreneurs, they want to be able to build stuff. Like everybody has their own ideas. So I said, okay, I'm like pretty much an all-encompassing coding school. And I was like, and I'm only going to charge you $49, like something stupid. And people jumped on it. And so I was like, oh, cool. But that was my biggest problem, is that I would do stuff like that and I would see success, but I wouldn't understand why these things were successful. Right. Like I would just throw a lot of ideas out and I just wasn't sure why they were happening. And then after a while, my brother had just graduated college and at the moment I'm 38. My brother's 12 years younger than me, but this was like maybe 5 years ago. And so he's at that age and now where he would see a lot of people online just doing what they want to do, because you're on social media and his age group, they seem like they're just living their best lives, as they like to say, type of shit, right? Like nobody has jobs anymore and everybody's just traveling the world and stuff. So he was like at this crisis where he's like, man, I don't know what to do. I don't want to work. I don't want to work for somebody else.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, come move in with me and I'll teach you this online stuff. And so, I taught him some coding, and then I was like, yeah, let's just start a blog. And like, he's a real fitness type of person. And my wife's real into fitness. So I was like, oh, okay, let's just start a blog around health, fitness, and that kind of stuff. And so that's when we started our blog, Thrive Strive. And I was like, don't worry, guys. I know how to make this successful. I know all this shit, like I'm just blowing smoke out my ass. And so for like 3 months, it's just bombing. Like nobody's going to the site. And they're like, since they had never experienced that before, they went from like the high of, yeah, we're going to start a blog, we're going to have a business, to like the low of, wait, I don't know if this is for us type of thing. And then, yeah, I went for a long walk and I told myself, I need to figure this out. I need to really understand like why people give you money, why people visit sites, why are these other bloggers able to post these income reports, where they're like, oh, I made $10,000 this month and I can't get $10 a month. Like, why can't I figure this out? What are they doing different? Because you look at these sites and you know, it's not, and when I say this, I'm not trying to demean anybody or make them any less than they are, but you look at these sites and you're like, they're not doing anything fucking special here. Like, why can't I do what they're doing? Right. And you think like, I am doing what they're doing, but you're not getting the same results. So I had to sit down. I had to figure out, like, you know, why people are able to have a success and I'm not able to have success. And then that kind of just started this whole thing now where I have a billion sites and all that kind of stuff. So that was a long ass story. I apologize for that.
Honestly, you've just hit on, that's basically the whole podcast. We could just finish the whole podcast right now, to be honest. That was it. It's just amazing though, like how, like you say, there's a few things that I picked up on there, how a lot of people say the same sort of thing. You know, a lot of people don't mind their job, but they don't want to, you know, they're not having the freedom to be able to choose what they want to do, or it's a different thing for everyone. But there's so many people that I speak to on this podcast or just in this whole online world. It's a whole different world, isn't it? By the way, like, no one gets what I'm doing still, but you know, it's just like a whole different mindset.
Yeah, I mean,
it's very hard to explain, but
there's like, you grow up, you know, a big issue is you grow up and it's always go to school, get a good job, live the rest of your life, right? And like that worked a long time ago.
The script.
Right. But now it doesn't, mainly simply because you can't rely on companies anymore. Like, you can't rely on people keeping you around and stuff like that. And so my mom would always say, you know, you need to get a real job. You need to get a real job. And I was like, that's cool. I understand why you're saying that.
Yeah.
But you also have to understand, like, I've been laid off. I've been fired. My job has disappeared. You know, I don't want to keep on going through this revolving door where I'm hoping that somebody pays me what I'm worth, keeps me around, and also knows what they're doing so the business stays afloat, type of thing, right? Like, I'm putting my life in somebody else's hands. Why, if I'm gonna be miserable, at least let me be in control of my own misery, type of thing.
Yeah,
so,
that's a good way of putting it. Yeah,
it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing, and that's why people don't understand it. And a lot of people, what I always tell people is that everybody around you wants you to be the average. They want you to be the normal. They want you to be the status quo type of thing. And so when you say, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to try to do this thing on my own, it kind of reflects back on them, and they think, man, I wish I had the courage to do that. Like, they're not telling you that. They're thinking that, right? You know, I wish I could do that. But they're, you know, maybe they're too scared, or they have some. So what they try to do is like, oh, you're silly. That's a silly idea. That's never going to work out. You know, they don't. Some people just don't want it to work out for you because they don't want to make themselves feel bad, type of thing. And it's just a weird dynamic. And I mean, with my community, a lot of it isn't me helping people build businesses. I'm a psychologist or a psychiatrist for a lot of people. Like, I have to walk through a lot of different mental stuff.
Yeah.
Because like the business stuff, it's like a checklist. You can follow certain things and that's it. But you got to hit that mindset where, okay, first I have to overcome my own self-doubt. Now I got to overcome the self-doubt that my friends and family are giving me, you know, and it's just so many hurdles that you have to overcome that it's crazy.
I'm laughing here because I'm actually, when we're recording this, so end of August, I've actually just officially given up my job. I'm an international teacher. So like, my wife has just gone back to work and stuff. Like, she's amazing because she's doing that. You know, we can basically live off her salary for a while and whatever.
Congratulations.
Whilst I try and, you know, I'm making that, I'm in that stage at the minute, and I'm speaking to all these people and, or, you know, all like friends and family, and they're just like, what are you doing? Like, what are you actually doing? And I'm trying to explain, but it's, I might need some of that psychology that you're talking about.
I went through the same situation, and where, like, my wife, she's always known that I'm just the type. She always knew I was always going to leave whatever I was working and try to do something on my own, because that's just me. So she accepted that. And then when we were going through the rough patches, she went out and became a nanny. You know, I'm like, dude, you know, I know she didn't want to be a nanny, but she's like, right, you know, I know you're going to keep on trying to do this, and I know eventually you're going to make it work. But for now, we need to pay the bills. So I'll take that responsibility and I'll pay the bills. And, you know, and I think it's something that I don't want to say I underappreciate it, but at the time, like I was so caught up in my own thing because I was like, fuck, I got to make this work. Got to make this work. That when I hear stories like yours, I'm like, oh shit, that's right. She did sacrifice so much. So now, like everything I do now, yeah, you do a lot for yourself, but now it's also like, okay, no, I'm going to make it. I'm going to show her that, what she did was worth it.
Yeah.
Like that sacrifice was worth it type of thing. So, yeah, thank God this isn't a video because I'm not crying here. So
It's well, it sounds like you, as I was saying to you before we start recording, it sounds like you're doing absolutely amazing. So I'm sure everyone listening, and if they're in the car or in the gym, whatever, they want to get to the bit where you actually start saying, this is how you start making money, guys, because like out of everyone that I've sort of come across online, you are the no bullshit guy. You literally say, look, your niche is shit. Don't do that. That's a terrible idea. And you even say, like, these are the 7 niches. They work. Do them. Like, just copy people. You outright say, copy people. And obviously, because even if I try and copy you, even if I look at everything that you've done and I do it, it's not going to be the same because, well, we look different for a start. So like, it's impossible for me to do the same as you. Whereas I can just copy your blueprint that you've already laid down for people, basically.
Right. I think one of the biggest problems that when people get started is they go in with this mindset, I need a unique idea. And they spend so much time trying to think of a unique idea. And I always did that. And like I said, one day I just had this revelation. Why was this one person getting so much traffic, getting so much money? And I sat down, I just started reading their post. And, their posts, they weren't writing anything unique, but they were writing exactly what their audience wanted. And it's such a very basic concept. Just provide some type of service, some type of product, some type of value, some type of information that your audience wants. Like that's fucking all business is. And we want to complicate it because either we're new to this or we just think, okay, if it's this easy, why didn't I do this before? Why didn't they teach me this in school? Why is everybody holding this big secret? And it's not a secret. So if I come to you and I say, you know what, I'm going to help you lose 10 pounds in 7 days, that's not a unique idea. That's nothing new. But I came to you and I told you, and you're like, holy shit, take my money, right? It's nothing new. It's no different than when you start a restaurant. Like there's no such thing as really unique restaurants. So, yeah, they have like kind of gimmicks. Some have gimmicks, but if you decide to start a Mexican restaurant, make good tacos, make good burritos, be in the right location, you got a business. Like no chef is sitting there thinking, man, how can I make my restaurant completely different than everybody else's? And, I'm just going to serve grass or some stupid, like people do stupid shit and they fail. Yeah. It's just, why can't we just look at other businesses and say, you know what, I'm interested in gardening. Let me go look at some gardening sites. Oh, that's what this gardening site did to attract this audience. Okay, let me do that as well. But, like you said, let me put my own spin on it because I have my own worldview on gardening. And, I want to teach people how I view it type of thing. It's when I tell people this, they kind of look at me like, you're an idiot. This makes, I'm not doing this. And then 3 months later, they come back to me and they're like, you know what? I should have listened to you a long time ago. This would have been a lot easier. And I'm like, hey, that's just how it goes.
So if you are one of the, or like, if someone's just starting out, what kind of tips or recommendations would you give someone? Like, what's the first step that they kind of need to take?
Make sure you understand there's a lot of ups and downs and patience is required. And I say that because what happens is when we read other people's success stories or we hear other people's success stories, that's what you hear is like the success part. And so you never get that whole, oh, they've been at this for 5 years or they struggled or, all that kind of stuff. You just see that end and you're like, well, this person's making $5,000 a month with their blog. Why after 2 weeks I'm not making 5,000 type of thing? And you just have to understand, like it's a process. But because it's a process, what you also need to understand is that every day, every hour, every week, every month you put into it, you're building on top of something. So what I see happen a lot is people will work hard for a month and they don't see results and they they stop because they burn themselves out or they get frustrated. So they stop for a month, and then they might come back a month later. And what happens is they have to start all over again, basically. What I always see is, especially with my students, is they'll work for 3, 4, or 5 months. They won't see any crazy results. And then one day they'll wake up and, either traffic skyrocket or people are buying their products. And it's like, how'd that happen? Did I get lucky? And I'm like, no, you've put in work every single day. You've built up, and now you just hit that tipping point. Like, that's just how it always happens. And yeah, I mean, if you're starting off, literally just look around and say, if you have this idea, you say, I want to help people do whatever, look around to see if other people are already making money that way. Because if nobody's making money that way, that kind of tells you something. Maybe there's just no money in it. There very well could be, but I don't think as your first business, you want to be the person that ventures into a whole new territory that nobody's ever touched. When we say copy somebody else, it's not, directly copy everything, but, copy their idea, copy their audience, see who they're reaching out to, see how they're attracting them, and just follow their model. There's absolutely no shame in that whatsoever. Some people, they're like, oh no, I can't do that, I'm embarrassed. I'm like, okay, well then just keep on complaining about your life and not making money or doing whatever. But I mean, what happens is after a while, you start to understand your audience more. You start making money. Then you start venturing out and say, okay, I understand this stuff. Let me do my own twist on something. Then it becomes a lot safer, because it's a lot easier to try new things when you have that money coming in over there, right? So I know, like, my community manager gets mad at me because I'm always like, I have this idea. And she's like, I don't want to hear it because you're going to try to do it. We don't have time for this. We have so many other things. I'm like, fuck that. We're going to do this idea because it's in my head. But we can do that because we already have money coming in, and that's going to be steady coming in doing that type of thing. So, first build that foundation, and then you can be the unique butterfly that you want to be type of stuff.
Gotcha. That is some good advice, actually. And you obviously talk quite a lot about, and I've seen in some of your like emails and things like that, you're very focused on that sort of like free traffic, because obviously that's probably like the first hurdle for new bloggers online, is to get that traffic, get that audience coming in. So I wondered if you could maybe, obviously not in great detail or anything, but maybe something about Pinterest and SEO, which is kind of the two things you talk about quite a lot.
So first, the reason why I think everybody, no matter who you are, needs to start off with free traffic is because I'll go on social media and I'll see a lot of ads where people will say, oh, now you can make $10,000 a month in your first 60 days. And, they talk about paid traffic and, buying ads and all that kind of stuff. And that's appealing. But the problem is, when you don't understand your audience, you don't know how to message them correctly. You don't know how to connect to them through the emails. You don't know how to do the right kind of landing page. There's so many things you don't know how to do. So you're spending money, you're bringing in traffic, and it's all flopping because you just don't understand anything about your audience whatsoever. You don't know what's going to work. So you're pretty much just throwing money away. When you start with free traffic, you're saying, okay, let me see what works. Oh, okay, I'm getting 1,000 people a day to this piece of content. And because of now I'm getting 1,000 people a day to this piece of content, I know people like this piece of content. Now maybe let me build a landing page around this piece of content. Now I can go out and buy ads, that type of thing. So at least you know that. Same happens when you're writing the emails. Are people responding to your emails? Are people praising them? Are you getting that kind of discussion? Are people opening your emails? When you see people doing that, then it's like, oh, okay, now I might be willing to invest a little bit more into that kind of stuff. But yeah, you mentioned Pinterest, and Pinterest really was the game changer. It's funny because my wife was always on Pinterest, and as a guy, and I'm sure a lot of guys are like this, you see Pinterest and you're like, okay, great, that's nice bookmarking, like, right? It's a nice way to save pictures. That's great. My wife's like saving recipes and interior design. I'm like, okay, great, yeah, whatever. But when
wedding stuff. What is the wedding stuff? What is that?
And so when I started we started the health blog, I was like, oh, she's always on Pinterest. So let me look at Pinterest to see what people are doing. And somehow I came across like some pins about blogging. And I was like, wait, people are talking about blogging on here. And I just kept on studying this, and I was like, holy shit, you know, Pinterest is really just a giant marketing site where every pin is an ad. Every piece of content you get to put up there is an ad to go back to your site. And I was like, it's so obvious, but it's like not obvious at the same time. And so I was like, man, I really got to figure out how to make this thing work. And so I just sat down, and once I hone in on something, I just become so neurotic about it. Like I have to master it constantly. Like if you look at my house, like I have so many different hobbies that I, you know, started, and then like I get to like, I like to say like I never mastered them to like 100% level, but I'll get to like maybe I consider it like 80% where I'm competent enough where I can teach other people stuff. And then I'm like, okay, what's the new thing I got to learn? Yeah. So I sat down with Pinterest, and I was like, okay, this is what they do, blah, blah, blah. Let me give this a shot. And so with the health site, it was like the first 90 days total, the site got 1,800 page views, like something just poor. Just, you know, I think the average is out to like maybe like 13 people a day come to your site, which at the very beginning is fine, but after like 90 days, you're like, what the fuck, you know? This doesn't seem to be working at all. And then the fourth month, I think it was like 9,000 page views in just that month. I was like, whoa, okay, now we're on to something. And then by the fifth month, it was 100,000 page views, and it was all from Pinterest. And I was like, what the
100,000?
Yeah. And I was like, what the hell? I was like, what? No, I was like, no, I got to try this again. So I created another site, and, you know, I just reapplied what I thought I knew. And then that site does 100,000 page views in 6 months. And I was like, okay, I've done it twice. Let me see if I can do it a third time. So I do it with a third site, and the third site does 400,000 page views in the first 60 days. And I was like, what? So I was like, okay, 3 times I'm onto something here.
Were they all in the same niche?
Yeah, they're all health.
Right. Yeah.
All right. And so I was like, okay, now I can teach people this stuff. So I started, you know, showing other people, and then other people start getting results. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this is only because I'm in the health niche. Let me try something else. So I do a parenting site. And at this point in time when I started, I don't have any kids. So I don't know shit about parenting. But what I always tell people is that, because people say, you know, I'm not an expert in this niche. And I was like, well, all you have to do is you just have to know one step more than the person you're teaching. So if I want to write about a topic, I'll go research that topic. And because I researched that topic, I can write my own content around it. So essentially what you're doing is, if you don't feel like you're an expert, at least consider yourself a research assistant to the reader that's looking for that information. And so I start this parenting site, 100,000 page views. I'm like, okay, whatever. This is dumb. This seems like it's too easy. So then I start a generic lifestyle site, because everybody's like, I just want to write about lifestyle. And I'm like, that's not really a niche, but lifestyle is basically your excuse to say I can write about anything I want. So I did that, and that was like 200,000 page views. And I was like, okay, Pinterest, this thing works. Yeah. so then I was like, but the problem is, like, people get so infatuated with Pinterest because they hear these numbers, and, you know, I'm not saying everybody gets these numbers right away. It always varies, right, of how long it takes. The problem is, especially with people that are just starting off with this, when you see that kind of success, you don't want to let it go. And so you stick with Pinterest, and when Pinterest traffic goes up and down. So when Pinterest traffic goes down, you freak out, and you're like, what do I got to do now? You try to change your Pinterest. The problem is that you're relying on one traffic source. So then, you know, about like a year later, I started noticing that I was getting a healthy amount of traffic from Google. And I was like, well, I mean, like, I knew basic SEO, so I would have a good URLs, and, you know, I had my headings. Like, I would just do the very basics of SEO. And I was like, wow, why am I like outranking a lot of these people? And what I was finding was that the traffic I was getting from Pinterest, the social traffic, was increasing my rankings, because Google was seeing people coming from social sites, and they call that branded traffic. And because I was getting all this branded traffic, Google was thinking, oh, this content must be legit. This site must be an authority site. So I was raising up in the rankings for that. So now I'm getting, you know, 50% of my traffic from Pinterest, 50% of my traffic from Google. And I think with the health blog, like I said, first 90 days was 1,800 page views. In 20 months, we were at 1 million page views a month.
From Google?
Yeah.
What?
So...
and this is that same... Wait, is that the Thrive?
This is Thrive Chef, yeah.
And which was like... what would you say? 1,600 in 3 months?
Yeah, right.
Same website.
Yeah. And so we also had a ketogenic diet site that was doing 3 million page views a month. And I mean, I'd say these numbers and people are like, wow, you know, like, and I don't want to give people like this crazy hope. Like that's what happens with everybody. It was just, these things they fell into place, mainly because we were just going to work. I mean, we're just churning out content, but quality content. And like I said, we were just being consistent with it. And then one day you wake up, you look, and you're like, wow, all this work is finally paying off. It's blown up. So I always like to use the analogy. It's like planting a seed. Like you don't plant the seed, water it, and I'm like, okay, where's my damn tree? Like you just keep on doing this stuff, and then one day you see like a little leaf, and you're like, cool. And then 6 months later, you're looking like, wow, I have a whole plant, you know, without even realizing it. So
what year was that you started doing that?
I think June 2016 is when we've started Thrive Strive.
So it's not long ago at all. So I'm going to cut us off there, because the next week, Scrivs is going to go into a lot more detail about particularly how bloggers that are interested in making that 6-figure business can actually do that. And I just think so far, this first half of the chat has really been about particularly the mistakes that new bloggers make and just kind of going through his journey. So you can see how it's just another example of how someone goes from nothing to then creating this successful online business. So I'm going to just sum up 4 of the main takeaways that I've taken from this chat so far. So number 1 is the biggest mistake that new bloggers make is that they try to create something new. And he's seen this time and time and time again, where someone is interested in making money online. They want to have a website that is profitable, but rather than seeing what is already working, they try and come up with like some brand new idea or something that they're interested in and they really want to write about, and it just doesn't work. And so they get disheartened and they end up giving up, and it kind of comes to nothing. So that's number 1. Number 2 is to be realistic. Have that good mindset from the start, but be realistic about your expectations. You're not going to go from never doing anything online to making money in a day or even a week, or probably not even in your first month. So as long as you've got this expectation from the start that it is going to take work, and sometimes it's going to be work that just feels like is getting you nowhere. It's all part of the process. It's all part of the learning experience, but it can come to fruition in the end. And there are so many people that can show you exactly how to do it. Number 3 is that Pinterest gets traffic quickly. It's far quicker than Google, or like trying to rank on Google and trying to get your pages get your website on the first page of Google, or pretty much any other social media, really, because there are different reasons for this. And actually we've got some podcasts coming up soon more about Pinterest. But basically Pinterest is not only a social media platform, it's also a search engine. So you can get these viral spikes of traffic like you can on other social media platforms, but there is a little bar at the top where people can search for specific content. So you can rank like you can on Google, you can do Pinterest SEO. But anyway, Pinterest gets you traffic quickly, much quicker than Google or any other way. And number 4 is that you don't have to be an expert in the niche that you want to write about. You could be, as Scrivs kind of said, you could be this person that's just one step ahead. All you need to do is know one more thing than the person that is reading your website and reading your blog. And you can almost become this sort of research assistant. And I think it's a really good way to think of it. So if it is something that you're interested in and it's in one of those 7 niches that is profitable online, I'll actually put a link in the show notes to one of Scrivs' great posts on that, which goes through those 7 niches. But basically it's health, wealth, relationships. You know, it all encompasses those 3 main big industries that do well online, because that's typically where people's main pain points come from, and that's typically the areas where people are willing to spend money to get their problems fixed, or, you know, solve their problem for them. Those are the main 4 key takeaways. Next week, Scrivs is going to go into much more detail, like I say, about how it's possible for people to create a 6 or even 7-figure business online, and kind of the 2 different people, because some people are not even going to be interested in creating a 6-figure business. So he also talks about how he has almost 2 different sets of people in his audience, two different sets of readers: people that just want to make a bit of money as like a hobby, blogging, just a little bit of side income, and they'd love to make some money from it, and then other people that want to turn it into a full-time business. Anyway, that's what's going to be next week. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Thanks for listening in to this episode of Make Time Online. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes, and please take a moment to write a review for our podcast in the App Store. Keep changing for the better, guys. Take care.